All right. It's ready. So good morning and welcome to the Hawaii Retirement Savings Board's October 28th, 2025 board meeting. My name is Alani Kioki and I'm the executive director of the program. Before the meeting is called to order, the chairperson will explain the procedures to participate in this hybrid board meeting, including how members of the public can participate and interact with the board during the meeting.
Good morning, everyone. To view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. You will be asked to enter your name. The board requests that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You will also be asked for an email address. You may fill in this field with any entry in an email format, for example, yada 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 at mail.com. Your microphone will be automatically muted and the video will be turned off. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about an agenda item. You will individually be enabled to unmute your microphone, turn on your video if you choose to, and testify. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone and turn on your video if you choose to before speaking, and mute your microphone and turn off your video after you finish speaking. For phone access, if you cannot get internet access, you may go audio only access by calling the Zoom phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you will be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to wait to be admitted into the meeting. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you'll be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-37E, the board may remove or block any person who willfully disrupts or compromises the conduct of the meeting. If connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued on a specified date and time. This information will be provided on the board's website at labor.hawaii.gov. Instructions to attend State of Hawaii virtual board meetings may be found online also at labor.hawaii.gov. I'll now conduct a roll call for members. William G. Kunstman, I am here. Jesse K. Oladeen.
Here.
Thank you. Barbara Creek.
Here.
Andrew Nomura.
Here.
Brian Taniguchi.
Here.
Senator Henry Aquino.
Excused.
And Representative Jackson Sayama.
Here.
Thank you. And Louis Salaveria, I believe, is excused. Okay, thank you very much, board members. I'll now call the meeting to order at 10:07 a.m. Our first agenda item is the approval of the minutes. This is for the September 30, 2025 open session meeting minutes, which is part of the board packet. Do I have any members from the public wishing to provide testimony on this agenda item?
None, Chair.
Seeing none, do any board members have any amendments to the minutes?
None.
Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Do I have unanimous consent to approve the minutes as presented?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our next agenda item. This is the presentation by the My Connecticut Savings Program. This will be by Jessica Muirhead, Executive Director. My Connecticut Savings Program will present the Hawaii Retirement Savings Board with information including but not limited to the background of the My Connecticut Savings Program Governance and State Partnership Overview. So I will turn it over to Jessica. Good morning.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Jessica.
Hi, good morning to you. Let me just bring up the presentation very quickly for you. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right, well, thank you very much to the executive director and the board for having me today. I know you had some great information from our peers out in Colorado, as well as Angela Antonelli from the Georgetown Center for Retirement. So I just wanted to, give a little bit more context to partnerships, as well as the Connecticut partnership, also called the Multi-State Alliance for Retirement Security, and just give a little bit of information about this particular partnership and how it is, similar and differs from other partnerships that are available out in Colorado. Oops, and let me see if I can go to the next page. There we go. A little bit about the history of the program in Connecticut. The Connecticut law was created back in 2016, and there was an exploratory phase for some time early on between 2017 and 2019. I was brought on in 2020, and we had our first vendor agreement with what is now Vestwell and what was then Someday. In 2021, Connecticut was the first state to launch a new program with Vestwell, and we did a pilot program in 2021 after signing that agreement and launched to the public in 2022. Since then, we've also made some updates to our statute. Connecticut was interested for a while in doing partnership. In fact, we had a provision that Vestwell needed to work with us to implement partnership, going all the way back to our original agreement with them. But with some changes in our statute, was better able to implement that, and took on its first partner just this year. Rhode Island selected us as their partner in 2024 and is just launched as of last week, after some negotiations with Vestwell and Rhode Island for implementation. So those were executed very just in August, and Rhode Island is now up and running about 6 weeks later. So the couple of the benefits to partnership to a partner state versus being a standalone program is some of those fee savings. So you're going to lock in the investment and administrative pricing that's already been secured by the existing partner. So in a way that would be harder to do, if not impossible to obtain, especially for some of the smaller states who are interested in partnership. It's just really hard to get that level of pricing in a brand new program from a smaller state. So partnerships among smaller states like Rhode Island, Delaware, Vermont, Maine, and others who have chosen partnership, it's just been more advantageous for them from just a fee savings perspective to move forward with partnership over trying to do a standalone program. And then from an industry perspective, it's the smaller programs are just not going to get as big of a deal in a similar way that a smaller business owner, doesn't get as good of a deal on its, retirement fees and things like that, has to pay more money in order for the program to be viable to the servicing vendor. The partner states within a partnership still maintain their own unique state identities. So while MyCT Savings and Rhode Island Savers have partnered together, that partnership is really on the back end to the average person who is interacting with the program of a partner state, it is its own standalone program, or it appears to be its own standalone program. So partner states benefit from having, those administrative and fee savings. But in terms of the appearance of the program, the, service of the program, to the people of Hawaii and the business owners of Hawaii would be its own program, that it has complete control over, the way that it looks and other elements, which I'll get into a little bit later. And the last one is there's a significant reduced administrative burden. Like I said, when we first implemented the RFP process, it took us an entire year to execute. Now, some of that was because 2020 kind of hit in the middle of all of that, and it was a bit that kind of threw a wrench into things. But the RFP process, the vendor negotiation process for a service of this size is a lengthy process. It takes many, many months for that to happen, and that's only if an RFP process would result in something that would be advantageous and over a partnership. So it reduces those administrative costs, and especially the time cost of the labor of the executive director and any other staff that might be associated with the program in that lengthy procurement process. We all know that state procurement processes can take a very long time in general, and usually for programs of this size even more so. So that really reduces the amount of time before launch. You also don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? A lot of the setup of the program has already been accomplished, and those kinks have sort of been ironed out in a way that makes it much easier for a new state to implement on a much faster timeline and a less, labor intensive and costly timeline. So a little bit about Connecticut's growth. We have 7,700 businesses enrolled and about 35,000. It's actually a little more than that. We're approaching 40,000 employees enrolled in the program. And we expect that to continue to go up as Connecticut is about to implement its compliance measures in 2026, which we just changed our statute to be more in line with best practices on compliance. We have about 52 million in assets to date, and we'll be starting to add the employees enrolled and the assets under management of Rhode Island as they just launched last week. So we expect in the coming months for that to increase as Rhode Island starts to roll out its program in terms of the sort of aggregate assets under management and employees under the partnership. So a couple of features of the Retirement Alliance, Connecticut's partnership. So we have a little bit of a difference in governance structure. Connecticut is a sole fiduciary state. We have an advisory board, but the comptroller is the sole fiduciary of the program. And that's true of Rhode Island as well. Rhode Island, the treasurer, is also a sole fiduciary of the program. We have an advisory board who we bring everything to, but their decisions are not, they make recommendations to the comptroller, then the comptroller executes those decisions, but the board itself it does not control the program directly. So what that means, in a practical sense from a partnership perspective is that, when we need to make changes to the program or to make a decision in partnership with other states within the alliance, those decisions can be made fairly quickly through the comptroller's authority as a sole fiduciary of the program. And we don't necessarily have to go back to our board in order for a decision to come through. And as the host state of the program, we find that to be, helpful in terms of getting things done fairly quickly. The Retirement Alliance itself is governed through, similarly to other partnership programs, investment programs. The Retirement Alliance is governed through an interstate collaboration agreement, which is effectively an MOU between the states. And then that is governed by a collaboration panel of which there is a representative from each state, and each state gets one vote in order to make decisions of, cognizance to the primary alliance vendors. So primarily that would be Vestwell. And related to that, one of the differences of the Connecticut program and the Retirement Alliance is that our investment strategy and lineup is a little bit different from most other states who have implemented a program. We have customized investments that were designed for a state auto IRA program rather than off-the-shelf products. So they were designed with the sort of average program user in mind. They hit close to benchmarks in the investment oversight, but tend to be slightly more conservative to help those participants whether, since the average participant in these programs tends to be a little bit more financially unstable and use their Roth IRA as a sort of emergency savings backup. The investments tend to be slightly more conservative so that to protect those assets in the case of, market ups and downs. The Retirement Alliance, we also offers, the default is target date funds, as is common to these programs, but we also offer 7 other static portfolio choices, which I believe to date is the most amount of investment choice available in a state auto IRA program. Those static portfolio choices I'll go over in a little bit more detail in a moment, but one of the reasons that we implemented that was to maximize, choice to those who may desire more or less investment risk over the standard. Although by and large, most people stick with the default target date fund based on a person's year of birth at enrollment. So then the fee structure, we implemented the first hybrid fee structure in a new program along with Vestwell. The hybrid fee structure, basically what it does is it keeps the asset fees as low as possible. In Connecticut, we have a statutory cap of 75 basis points, so we're well under that in the total basis points. But effectively what happens is there is an asset-based fee, which is fairly low. I want to say it's 35 basis points right now, 30 to 35. It fluctuates slightly depending on the market. Total basis points. And then for the sustainability of the program, there is also an account fee that is annual, that is like a flat dollar fee. So in Connecticut, that's $24 per year, so about $2 a month. And that provides a sort of stable early income. I think that was a learned lesson from the earlier programs that launched who had asset-based fees only, chiefly because those asset-based fees because the assets take time to grow, it just wasn't providing a very stable base of income early on in the program. So what that account fee does is provide an early sort of advantage in terms of revenues to your program. And then on top of that, those early revenues can be reduced at a later time, or if they stay the same, that account fee becomes a smaller and smaller representative portion of the individual's assets over time. So it's a smaller and smaller percentage of their savings as time goes on. And this is just a quick illustration of how this happens. So we have the MyCT savings account contributions and partner account contributions, those go into a pooled trust or a pooled assets, which are invested together for savings potential. Those go into individual savings accounts, and then the reporting from Vestwell goes back individually to each state. So one goes to MyCT savings, and then one goes back to each partner state, and then we'll, get a sort of aggregate report on how much we have collectively in order to hit those asset thresholds for future fee breaks that are already written into the contract. This is also just a quick illustration of the various fee types that are assessed on the accounts. And this is how the programs are paid. The employers don't pay any fees. The states typically don't pay any fees. There is a startup fee from Vestwell for newly joining states, but that's a one-time fee that's paid out. And then after that, they're paid entirely off of fees collected from the accounts. So the underlying investments are because of the individual portfolio design or that was made in concert with Vestwell, is pretty low at 3.5 basis points on the assets. Vestwell's administrative fees, which is how they pay themselves, is 17 basis points on the assets, and then they have a 24, as I mentioned earlier, annually per account, $24 annually per account, which will drop at our next threshold to 20. For state revenue, it's currently 2 basis points. That has to be universal among all partner states. So Connecticut, Rhode Island, and any future partner would collect for themselves 2 basis points for the assets in their own program. Connecticut does not collect any money from the other states in order to facilitate the partnership. So that 2 basis points would go directly back to Hawaii and not to any other state. And then there's an annual flat fee. That one is optional. So if Hawaii did not want to implement that, they could make theirs $0. Or if they wanted to have, higher early revenues from the annual flat fee, that they could have it be higher. I think the average is around $4. Connecticut currently collects $2 in addition per year. So ours total is $26 a year when combined with Vestwell. And there are other states that go all the way up to $6 a year or something like that. It's really dependent on the individual states' sort of repayment requirements in statute, and their staffing and budget needs within the state. So that's flexible above and beyond the required 2 basis point asset fee. This is just a little bit more about the investment options and the Multi-State Alliance Partnership. There are default investments, which are the target date funds. Those were developed by the Bank of New York Mellon Advisors, who are subcontracted to Vestwell Advisors, who have fiduciary responsibility to the program, with about 5-year intervals going all the way up to 2070 currently in those age cohorts. And then, as I said, we have 7 other static portfolio choices. These do not have a glide path, so they don't change. Those investments do not change over time. The portfolio allocations stay the same, and then they are based on a person's personal risk tolerance. So we have cash preservation, which is almost entirely very low returns on investment, but more stable, all the way up to growth, which is the most aggressive static portfolio. When a partner joins the partnership, there are certain program features that are maintained separately by each state. So, Connecticut would do this on their own, and then each partner does this on their own. So, the program's name, logo, its brand identity, its communication materials are all branded to that specific state and are not shared among states. Each state will have has its own program website with its own unique branding, unique URLs, and various details are changed to fit each state statute. So if there's a slight difference between them, then that's changed per website to reflect each state. The assets, while they all are held together in omnibus custodial accounts, they are identifiable by program. And so if there was ever a need for a separation in the future, those dollars can go with the state to, whatever their next program was, if the program either ended or closed, or if they chose to go out on their own or leave the partnership for some reason. So in the event of a termination, those dollars in each state can be separated out. The data and reporting, as I said before, each state receives their own reports for their own program participants. Importantly, the data of each program is not shared. So, Connecticut does not receive Rhode Island's data. Rhode Island does not receive Connecticut's data. Part of that is for federal law reasons, and also just, each state maintains its own data sets, and those are not shared as a matter of course. Also, in terms of its registration and enforcement schedule, that's worked out directly with Festwell and is not controlled by the lead state or by any other partner state. And then there are certain program features in the partnership which are maintained jointly by the collaboration panel and sort of overseen by the host state. So the investments, a partner joining the program, utilize those same investment selections that I just went over. And then when joining in the future, any changes to the investment structure would be mutually agreed upon by the collaboration panel and then implemented by the host state once voted on by the collaboration panel and approved individually in each state. The program defaults have to be similar to one another, so it can be slightly different. The default contribution percentage in Connecticut is 5%. That's the same in Rhode Island. Anyone else joining would need to be around the same. It could be a little more or a little less, but it couldn't be vastly different. You couldn't require, say, like a 15% default or a 1% default. It just has to be somewhere around what the partnership is doing as well. The program eligibility rules, same thing, need to be similar. They don't have to be exactly the same. So in Connecticut, it's employers with 5 employees or up. I believe that's the same in Rhode Island. And someone joining the program, again, it can be a little different, but it couldn't be, 25 employers and up. It has to be somewhere around the same program eligibility rules for the employers and the employees. So there's some wiggle room, but it just can't be vastly different. In terms of the program forms and documents, so partner states, the sort of will suppose for the employer and employee communications that are sent out by Vestwell. So not the ones that may come directly from the state office, but the employer invitation, the general templates for the website in terms of the commonly frequently asked questions and things like that, the overall structure of the website are maintained jointly by the collaboration panel in the partnership. And then any changes would be implemented through that panel, through the host state in Connecticut to make changes to those templates. But there's again, some wiggle room in there. Any differences that are specific to each state, to each state statute would be changed, but overall structure would not be vastly different between each state, other than its like visual identity, its branding, its names, and other details that are specific to the state. And then the procurement of new partnership vendors and amendments to existing partnership vendor contracts. Those are procured by the lead state with the assistance and input of the partner states. So the lead state takes on the administrative burden of needing to do that for any partners within the vendor partners within the partnership who might be collectively procured for. That said, currently the only collective vendor is Vestwell, so there are no current other vendors who are shared by the partnership. To briefly go over roles, the lead state has the primary responsibility for the overall administration and administrative burden of the Retirement Alliance, which includes, leading the procurement of vendors, leading the negotiation and holding of the vendor contracts on behalf of the partnership. But the partner states have the opportunity for input and adopt before final adoption. So while the lead state leads that process, it is a collaborative effort between all states before anything is executed. And then also takes on the administration of the partnership panel as the sort of chair of that panel. Partner states have a responsibility in the multi-state agreement to assist in matters concerning the Retirement Alliance and to administer their own state programs. So the host state doesn't administer the program on behalf of the other states. It really more holds the contracts that are then used by the other states in order to facilitate their own programs. And each state retains its own fiduciary duty and responsibility to its own program. The collaboration panel oversees those matters concerning the Retirement Alliance, and each member state appoints one representative to the panel. Generally, that's the executive directors, but it could be someone else. And then each state has one vote on the panel when voting matters come up. Then the lead state, Connecticut, executes those decisions with the program vendor, or if there are other decisions, then on that don't involve a vendor, we execute that on behalf of the partnership. And then the vendors. The partnership uses Vestwell and Vestwell Advisors for its investment advising and its program administrative services. So the investment advising services are included as a part of that fee structure, and they are the ones that develop and oversee the performance and report out on the performance of those investments, particularly because they are custom to the states, and then that is shared among the partnership. Those reports are shared among the partnership. Additional vendors we don't have at the moment, but that may be considered, and we have the ability to collaboratively procure by the panel. However, if a partner state wishes to, they can retain their own sort of belts and suspenders investment consultant. Connecticut has its own secondary investment consultant, which reviews the investment advisor's recommendations before implementation or before it even goes to the partnership for changes, and or may audit its own program at its own election. So those are maintained separately at the moment, although they could be collectively procured if desired by the partnership in the future. This is just a brief illustration of the interstate governance structure. There's in terms of the contractual relationship, there's 3 contracts that would be executed by any partner state joining. the Alliance, we have the master agreement with Vestwell, which was already executed by Connecticut. And then there is the MOU, or the interstate agreement, between the host state, Connecticut, and the partner state and other partners. Then there is the addendum agreement between the partner state and Vestwell, which signs on to the host state master agreement and outlines any particular procurement rules or that are needed in the partner state that is in addition to or different from Connecticut's. And then in terms of the governance relationship for shared input into any changes to the overall program structure as established through Vestwell, the partner states and Connecticut make decisions via the interstate panel, and then execution of those decisions is carried out by the Connecticut office. And just a couple of other points. There's some, in terms of the cost savings to partners, like I said before, you lock in the investment and administrative pricing that's already been secured by the existing partnership. The contracts are already negotiated, so there's a lot of administrative savings in that negotiation progress. And then also collectively, the economies of scale, I think particularly in smaller states, those economies of scale are really key in order to secure savings over time. So there is the potential for those additional cost savings over time. When contracts come up for renewal or renegotiation, having more accounts, more assets under management collectively makes it easier and more advantageous for the partnership to put that RFP out as a group and makes that the group more attractive to potential future vendors. I kind of already went over the required agreements. That's for the interstate collaboration agreement, and then that would be signed first with the partnership, and then the Vestwell partnership amendment is then signed on secondarily after that. For implementation for potential partners, so both of those agreements have to be signed before implementation begins. After execution, a partner program can be launched in as little as 90 days, about 3 months. Typically, it's a little longer than that. With Rhode Island, it took a little bit longer because Connecticut had to renegotiate its master services agreement, including the renegotiation of some of its fee structures to lower its fees with the implementation of partnership. So that took longer than usual, but once those contracts were signed, like I said, we signed all of those contracts back in August, and it's now, they launched in mid-October. So there was some work done ahead of that, but once the agreements were in place, Rhode Island launched in a pretty quick amount of time. In terms of what's necessary for preparation for launch for a partner state, the partner state needs to obtain its employer outreach information. Typically, this is unemployment insurance information, although there are other sources from the State Department of Labor, sometimes the Department of Revenue or a tax agency that's within the state that holds that type of contact information for businesses registered within the state. As being housed within the Department of Labor in Hawaii already, you should be able to access that information, no problem. But may wish to supplement that information is unfortunately not always up to date or accurate. I know in Connecticut, we have outreach emails that still go to an AOL address, and I'm pretty sure those are not working anymore. So we have supplemented going all the way back to our launch with sources from other state departments that also touch in the employer population, to help update that information and get us as accurate as we can, to the employers who should be invited into the program. The vendor Vestwell assists with setting that up, as well as the website, altering the employer and employee materials in advance of public launch. And then that outreach begins, where Vestwell, on behalf of the program, will start sending those invitations out to the employers. In terms of a wave schedule, smaller states like Rhode Island or Hawaii can launch basically all at once. You don't have to do a wave schedule, just due to the size. It's more typical, we've seen over time, for smaller states to forego that wave launch, where Connecticut had a wave launch every 3 months or so, based on the size of the employer. And smaller states can kind of forego that and just launch all at once, just to get going and kind of capture that excitement about the program and the media attention about the program, to get everyone in at once. One of the things that we found when we did our wave rollout was that we had to kind of reignite interest in the program every time we were doing a new wave, versus doing it all at once. You're kind of capturing that all in a bottle all at once. And that's a bit of an advantage for smaller states to be able to do. Also, in our view, the pilot program is an optional step. So, and that was something that Rhode Island has done, is they forgoed the pilot and just went straight to launch, which could speed, depending on how fast Hawaii's program wants to get up and running, foregoing the pilot step, which, takes a minimum of about 45 days or so. They can just skip that step. And part of that is because, pilots, when Connecticut piloted the program, we were the first new state to launch with Vestwell, and we needed to actually test their systems because they had not been, actually implemented in a program before, along with about the same time Oregon was switching its program over to Vestwell. So we were testing the program at the time. Now that there's no reason to test programs, and the chief advantage of a pilot is really for outreach purposes, is where you can find some motivated employers to kind of look at the program and to help build excitement about the program and knowledge about the program, and doing some outreach into the business industries that are affected. But I think it's just as likely that you can go and look at some of your early adopters by foregoing that pilot. Look at some of the early adopters of your program, go to them, and because they've clearly motivated to join, and talk to them about the program in a similar way, and just kind of skip the pilot step. In terms of the program launch, you have those agreements signed, you have your pre-launch preparation and implementation of the website materials, the optional pilot, and then on to program launch between 3 to 6 months after the signing of all those agreements. And just some other questions and considerations. Like we said, with the employer information sources, you may want to supplement those. In Connecticut, we have PFMLA, which back in 2022, when we launched, we implemented a sort of data sharing agreement with them as well, to supplement the information, because we knew that the UI information was not going to be perfect. The Department of Labor information was not going to be perfect. This kind of can depend state to state on cooperation of the department that maintains that data set. But since you're already within a Department of Labor, that shouldn't be an issue. But other additional sources, like the Secretary of State's offices, small business authorities, economic development authorities that may be within the state, would be helpful in order to help you try and find the most accurate, most up-to-date information for implementation of that outreach to employers. And those sources have to have the EIN so that you can match an employer to employer. And then in terms of employer outreach, we have noticed that certain industries are more likely to participate in these programs. And so we have sort of tailored our marketing and outreach to be industry specific in certain cases. So agriculture, definitely food service, restaurants, elder care and childcare services. So the typical industries where, there's a lot of part-timers, high turnover, and folks who, typically don't carry 401k programs because it's too expensive for those particular industries, by and large, tend to participate in the state's program more often. So we did a lot of outreach into those sectors specifically, into industry groups, expos and others. And success with outreach also into sort of general small business associations, regional chambers of commerce, and other advocacy groups for businesses to help inform them about the law and sort of bring them in and on board so that they're aware of what's happening and they're comfortable moving forward. And we found that a lot of those organizations were happy to be the resources to their members and provide that as a service to their members to inform them about the program. One of the advantages of being a geographically smaller state that we've noticed is that we've seen a lot of success with high touch in-person in-person meetings. So over webinars and things. Webinars are great, but people tend to not show up because they have a lunch that comes up or something instead. And our comptroller will do business walks at downtown areas. And when you're in a smaller, geographically more dense area, it's easier to kind of hop from one place to another and visit multiple places, sometimes in the same day. Some of my staff right now are in 2 different places at the same time across the state for those outreach events. So that is something that, the state of Hawaii might be able to take advantage of as well, that we found success in here in Connecticut, which is also geographically smaller. So I will stop there. And if there's any questions, please let me know. But thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Appreciate that. Any board members have any questions for Jessica?
So, Jessica, this is Alani. At the last board meeting, the board members did have a few questions for Colorado that I'm hoping that you'd be able to answer specific to the Connecticut program. So co-chairperson Kunzman requested information regarding the enforcement process. So I do understand that each program is by statute authorized to enforce the programs themselves, but what have you learned regarding your enforcement process? And how are you implementing that enforcement process?
Sure. So that's really individualized by state and kind of the new phase in the more mature program. So we just got our ability to implement financial fees just this past year. So we're setting up our infrastructure for that now. And it really seems to be dependent on states and other state agencies. So almost every other state who is either implementing enforcement or wants to implement has implemented enforcement is partnering with another agency in some capacity. So sometimes that's a different state agency that does enforcement in other ways, whether it's a tax agency or a Department of Labor unit, like a wage unit within the Department of Labor or some equivalent thereof. In Connecticut, our our Department of Labor didn't have the capacity for that, so we're looking into using an external vendor to help us with enforcement. And then I know others yet still are building an enforcement arm within their department. So it really depends on the resources that are available in the program, each individual program, and also just the various idiosyncrasies of how each other state's department, or potential department partners who already have enforcement arms, whether they have capacity or the ability to help partner to implement that particular one. But in Connecticut, we're looking at external vendors to help us with that for compliance.
Another question asked by a board member, I believe last month, was regarding how each state program can incorporate or address the federal Savers Match program into its program.
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. The whole group actually of the states across the country, not just within the partnerships, but also in the standalone programs, in concert with a lot of interested partners like Georgetown, the Pew Research Center, and others have been developing both we submitted comment to the Treasury about the implementation, giving our input about the implementation of the Savers Match, and also working with our vendors to figure out a sort of back end way to do it. We know that one of the issues with Savers Match is that Savers Match can a Roth IRA qualifies one for the Savers Match, but the federal matching dollars cannot come into a Roth IRA as of right now. So we are working with our vendors to look at potential workarounds if a sort of federal solution can't be found to change that so that Roth IRAs can receive those federal matching dollars. So it's that's an ongoing effort that's collective among all of the states, Connecticut, Colorado, California, Illinois, Oregon, and others are doing collectively to push for the benefit of the people in all of our programs.
Regarding marketing. So would you be able to share, if this is public knowledge, what Connecticut's budget for marketing is?
Sure. So our current marketing budget is $250,000. And we've found that to be fairly sufficient at the moment in terms of getting enough out. We have like a little commercial that we'll send out around this time of our yearly outreach for newly new businesses that are qualified to be in the program, as well as radio ads. You may want a slightly larger budget for your initial outreach to really kind of come out with a bang, but we've found that our marketing needs have kind of declined over time as we've moved from that startup phase into a more maintenance phase of we have a lot of marketing activity around our basically around our yearly launch, but outside of that it's more hands-on outreach activities that we're doing, which are expensive in terms of a labor cost of sending my staff and myself out to various places to give presentations or meet with business leaders, but in terms of like a marketing budget is not a high spend in terms of renting a table at a local expo or working with local business organizations to give a webinar for effectively for no cost at all. So and those outreach those in-person outreaches have been, frankly, some of the most fruitful. We definitely noticed a change from what's my CT savings? I've never heard of it. Are you a small bank? From, those really early stages now to, oh, I've heard of you before. My friend did it. Oh, I'm in the program and I think it's great. Or what have you, that we've noticed a big change over time, and those marketing needs from launch have gone down.
Does Vestwell market the program at all or no?
So Vestwell will for partner states, Vestwell sets up some of the marketing in terms of like the Marcom for the website. They design the flyers and those like general outreach materials, which are then, as I said earlier, sort of adopted and changed slightly for each state and that branding. But in terms of the like doing an ad buy, no, they don't do the ad buy for partner states.
Okay. And I believe, Brian, you asked Colorado the last meeting, so I'm asking Connecticut. When does Connecticut expect a fee reduction?
Sure. So as I said earlier, we actually already had a fee reduction as a part of the renegotiation process when we more fully incorporated partner states into the master agreement. Because Connecticut's original master agreement was a standalone program with the possibility of a host state. But then when we re-examined that along with Rhode Island, we wanted to build in greater protections. As a part of that, we renegotiated our asset-based fee down to the 17 basis points. So that was our first fee drop. We will also hit our first fee drop on the account fee, the yearly account fee, from $24 down to $20 when we hit collectively as a group 75,000 accounts. So we have 40,000 in Connecticut alone. Rhode Island's now getting up and started, so we would expect to hit that. Especially with the implementation of compliance in Connecticut, where the accounts we should see go up a little bit as a result of that activity. We should expect to see that, fairly soon within the next year or so.
Members, any other questions?
Other questions?
Don't see any.
Just a question home. What does Connecticut see as the benefit for Hawaii joining the partnership?
So the benefit to Hawaii or the benefit to connect, sorry, just to clarify.
Yeah, the benefit to Connecticut.
Oh, the benefit to Connecticut, sure. Well, frankly, I think in terms of it's the economies of scale, right? And Connecticut is a mid-sized state. We're about smack dab in the middle of the 50 in terms of business size. We're geographically small, but we're like, I think, number 25 out of 50 in terms of size. So the economies of scale with partnership will definitely help us with that fee structure. We already saw the benefit from that with the implementation of Rhode Island, where our fees went down when Rhode Island joined, and we'll get to scale more quickly. And then in the future, for any future procurements, going out as a group together with, $100 million under our belts or $200 million under our belts, to, attract potential future vendors to get like a better deal on the fees for the participants in the program is only a benefit to all of us, including Connecticut. So that is one of the chief reasons why Connecticut was interested in partnerships from the inception of its program, is for those economies of scale.
Thank you.
Members, do we have any other questions? Seeing none, at this time I'd like to ask if anybody from the public would like to provide testimony on this agenda item at this time. I don't see any. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time and for your presentation today, Jessica. We appreciate it.
It was excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Okay, so our next agenda item is implementation of the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program. The Hawaii Retirement Savings Board will discuss the next steps to implement the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program, including whether it will enter into an interstate partnership or become a standalone program, delegation to board staff to draft requests for information, RFI, and requests for proposals, RFP, to initiate services with vendors to implement the program, and tentative timeline for the program to go live. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Alani, the Executive Director.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the board meeting in person and virtually. So for today's presentation, we will share our screen. To just confirm if everyone can see the presentation. Thank you. So the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program. Today's discussion will focus on the program structure, whether the board will determine whether it'll become a standalone program or enter into an interstate partnership. The board will also discuss which service provider, if a standalone provider or program is the step in which the board wants to take, or which partnership is an interstate partner. Excellent. So considerations for future decisions. The board must consider the cost versus control, mitigating factors, and confidence in the service provider or interstate partner. Program structure consideration. So if the standalone program for administrative costs, the initial costs were significant compared to an interstate partnership. Looking at a standalone program, the cost would be $813,000. These are estimates based off of the Pew report provided in 2021. The initial cost would be $738,000. Ongoing costs for a standalone, $647,000. Ongoing costs for a partnership, $512,000. And the implementation timeline, as you've heard from several presenters before the board, including Colorado, Georgetown, and today Connecticut, as well as Pew. If the board decides to go via a standalone program, the process itself is much longer. It'll take between 24 and 36 months to implement the program. This is not including the RFP process alone, which can take up to 12 months. If the board decides to enter into an interstate partnership, the process is much more expedited. The board may issue RFIs to gather information or seek information directly from the two existing partnerships. So I've attached for the board member and the public's information, the Colorado documents, so that there's a master agreement, as well as additional contracts. For program control and investment design, for a standalone program, the board controls the investment menu. So there is more autonomy if they decide to go via a standalone program. However, there's significant time and resources to make and monitor these investments and more oversight of the board. If an interstate partnership is entered into, the initial design regarding investment menus are made by the partnership as a whole. The ability to gather scale and assets, possibly resulting in lower investment fees, so that's a plus, and multiple states monitoring the investments. For participant fees, a standalone program would see higher provider costs. And if we enter into an interstate partnership, there's an economies of scale. Currently, there are two vendors providing services to these partner states. You have Vestwell and a census. I've provided the states that have entered into contracts with Vestwell. Also including the states that have entered into contracts with the census. So you have under the Colorado Partnership, Colorado, Maine, Delaware, Vermont, Nevada, and Minnesota. Standalone programs are Oregon, New Jersey, New York, Virginia, Maryland. Under the Connecticut Partnership, we have Connecticut and Rhode Island. For a census, these are standalone programs, and it's the state of Illinois, as well as the state of California. Next steps, this is what the board really needs to consider. And so I'm hoping at a subsequent board meeting, we'll have all of this information before you, and the board can make some final decisions to get the program up and running. So program options. Again, the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program can become a standalone program. You've heard both the benefits as well as the negative aspects of entering or becoming a standalone. The board can decide to enter into a partnership with Colorado, the Partnership for a Dignified Retirement Plan, or enter into a partnership with Connecticut, the Alliance for Retirement Security. If the board decides to go the standalone route, we begin the procurement process to obtain provider services. If the board decides to enter into an interstate partnership, the board can review contracts for both partnerships with the Deputy Attorney General, provide comments and recommendations to the board. So I would be doing this on your behalf, and then enter into a partnership agreement. That is it.
So a
Yes.
question, Alani, sort of an intermediate option, as I understood it. At the last meeting, I think it was Angela mentioned that if we were to issue an RFI, that states that have issued RFIs in the past have had responses not only from Colorado and Connecticut, but also others interested potentially in partnership.
That is a possibility, but what I presented to the board are the only two established partnerships right now.
Right.
So that is a possibility.
And then also, frankly, we've received excellent presentations from both Colorado and Connecticut, really helpful in terms of information. What additional process would there be, or should there be, or need there be, if anything, in terms of an RFI? Like, to me, this is the RFI process, right?
So there are specific questions, right, that would go into the RFI process. I pulled some of the information from other jurisdictions, and it's regarding fees. Does the program have the ability to amend the contracts in any way, shape, or form to comply with our statutes and administrative rules, not just chapter 389, but other statutes that the board is subject to. So things like that we need to be able to get firm answers and provide to the board to make informed decisions.
So if we were to do that, frankly, I think it makes sense, authorize you to issue the RFIs or RFI. Would that be something that would be issued to, any available state? I mean, frankly, at this point, there's, it would just be the other currently standalone states, I assume.
So what I would do is I would post it not only to the programming website, but I'd request that Angela with Georgetown post it to their website, since there is a repository of information for all state retirement savings programs, which each state has access to. And they'd be able to review the RFI or the set of questions.
Right.
And I want to refer to it as a set of questions because this program, if entering into an interstate partnership, is not subject to the procurement law.
Just want to be sure that procedurally we're covered for any options so that we're not inadvertently violating any procurement requirements, Gary.
Yeah, so my understanding is you be signing a contract with another state. And under the procurement code, those kinds of contracts are exempt from following the procurement code.
Right, but what Alani is proposing for RFI is fine, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Or a set of questions.
Right, set of questions, right, continuing with the process.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The decision to go ahead requires you know, like in the Connecticut case, signature or signing with Vestwell, does that require approval?
That wouldn't be required because the contract that we're focusing in on is the one with the state. It's the lead state. Because if you don't have that, you have no relationship with Vessel anyway. So-
You could,
Well,
You could-
as a
you could,
standalone,
that is standalone.
but
you
to
could.
do that, you would have to go through the procurement code,
Okay,
because that's not a state.
oh, yeah, okay, so as long as it's connected to the,
Right, you don't
Existing-
get to that supplemental without first having an agreement with the state.
okay.
And we have to wait until the next meeting to make a formal decision, or can we give you guidance today on?
You can give me guidance today. What I do request is that you delegate the authority to draft a set of questions. And then have those questions posted not only to our website, but if Angela will allow us to do so, posted to the Georgetown website as well.
Because, I mean, personally, I'm quite comfortable saying, I'd like to see us go into one of a compact with another state. For all of the, you know, benefit reasons that we've heard, and just for what it's worth, in my experience. Especially this fee structure is so much more favorable than my experience with a standalone program. It would make, I think, a material difference to the saver participants. Aside from time issues and all of that.
So I think the motion on the table would need to be for the board to determine that it's proceeding with the partnership route. And then authorize me to draft a set of questions regarding the partnerships.
Sounds good.
Any further discussion before we perhaps entertain a notion? Motion, rather.
Is there any questions from the public? I apologize for not asking. No? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So do we want to entertain a motion at this time?
I move that we proceed with a partnership with another state in terms of how we set up the program.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Session.
No discussion. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Members who are. Let's see here. I, William Kunzman, vote aye. Jesse Keola Dean,
Aye.
Barbara Krieg,
Aye.
Andrew Nomura,
Yes.
Brian Taniguchi.
Aye.
Representative Sayama.
Aye.
It's unanimous. The motion is carried.
And I also move that we delegate to the executive director of the authority to draft a set of questions to proceed with the information process so that we can make a final decision.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, board members? Seeing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. Again, I, William Kunstman, vote aye. Keola Dean,
Aye.
Barbara Krieg,
Aye.
Ryan Taniguchi,
Aye.
and Representative Sayama.
Aye.
Very good, unanimous and approved.
Skip me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Andrew Nomura.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me,
Motion.
Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have the votes, not counting the remote members? Do you have the votes here to carry the motion? No. Then can I ask if you can ask the remote members if they are alone?
Present and alone.
Remote members, starting with Keola Dean, are you present and alone?
Yes.
Representative Sayama?
Yes, I'm alone.
Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that clarification. Let's see here. So I believe that is It for this agenda items.
Sorry, question then.
Yeah, go
What
on.
about, what do we need to do, have we already done it, to authorize an MOU to get the data, to start collecting the employer data? I thought you said, Bill, that we would need to enter into an MOU with one of the DLAR agencies.
Yes, first,
So may I suggest that at the next board meeting, when you're presented with both contracts as well as our comments, that I will then draft the MOU or MOA based on a review of the contracts,
Okay.
because there are very specific things, line items, data sets that need to be put into that MOU.
Do we need to authorize the executive director to start that process and work with the attorney general as needed to end up to draft an MOU?
Do you-
I don't think so. It's gonna be based on the questions that you prepare and the responses you get back, and then we can work from there.
Okay,
But if you guys wanna,
As long as it's within what we've already delegated as authority to the executive director.
I mean, there's been discussion, not a formal vote regarding the delegation for MOUs.
If
you
that
wanna-
delegation is needed, we can
Yeah.
make that decision at the next board meeting. Just, if you would just check to make sure that it's within the delegated
Or
authority.
you wanna just do
or you
it?
want, just do it, all right?
Yeah,
It's fine.
okay, so the motion on the table.
Is to delegate to the executive director the authority to develop an MOU to collect the any employer data required to move ahead with the program.
okay.
You.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion, board members? Seeing none, I will put on my reading glasses. William Glucksman. I vote aye. Keola Dean,
Aye.
and you are president alone,
Yes.
obvious. Okay, Barbara Creek,
I
Andrew Nomura,
Yes.
Brian Taniguchi,
Aye.
and Representative Sayama.
Aye, and yes, I'm alone.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion is carried. And I believe we can go on to the next agenda item, and I will ask our executive director to take over on this and the next agenda item, boards and dolphins.
So agenda item number 5, board policy on limitation on time for public testimony. The Hawaii Retirement Savings Board will consider whether it will adopt a limitation on time for public testimony while providing the chairperson the discretion to provide a member of the public with more or less time according to the agenda item and the number of persons signed up to testify on the agenda item. So what was provided in the board meeting packet was the news from OIP, time limits on testimony. So what Sunshine boards need to remember is that boards may set reasonable time limits on oral testimony under HRS section 92-3, which states in part that boards may provide for reasonable administration of oral testimony by rule. The OIP does not interpret this to require administrative rulemaking under chapter 91 HRS for setting testimony time limits. However, OIP generally interprets by rule to mean that a board wishes to impose time limits on oral testimony, then the board should adopt such a rule as a policy reflected in writing. To enforce a time limit on oral testimony, the board must have a written rule or documented decision adopting the rules such as meeting minutes. And this is why it is placed on the agenda. So for the board's consideration, the board will need to determine whether it'll set a time limit on public testimony, the amount of time, as well as the discretion left to the coach or the chairperson to allow more or less time according to the agenda item, the number of persons signed up to testify on the agenda item. So in the past, there was a 5-minute time limit per agenda item. However, we've had guests appear who provided oral testimony that went more than the 5 minutes allotted and less than the 5 minutes allotted. So would the board like to place a time limit on each agenda item for public testimony?
Or is it on each agenda item or each individual testifier?
Each,
Testify.
Yeah.
Are we required to set a limit?
you're not
Since-
required. But it's recommended if the agenda is long.
And what is I've seen, 3 minutes mentioned in a lot of, circumstances. Is that the most common limit that we see?
So coming from a former office with 52 different boards and commissions, we set a 5-minute time limit.
Wow.
It afforded the member of the public to provide his or her comments and provide discussion as well for the board members.
Was that workable in your
It was-
experience?
And I was representing the County Spending Commission, and we had a limit of, I think it was 3 to 5 minutes. And there were some meetings that were very contentious, and there were a lot of people who signed up to testify, so in those kinds of situations, it was handy to have a time limit.
Mhm.
Not as easy to enforce though, when,
Right.
people are talking.
It's not like we've had a lot of public.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess my question, and you heard Gary's experience and your experience, like how many times, I don't know, ballpark percentage, I guess, if you have a 5-minute time limit, how many times do you have issues or challenges with trying to enforce this thing?
Well, it's depending on how contentious the agenda item is. And really, in most cases, and this is what you guys did, I believe at the September 30th board meeting, you just allow them to speak. You may have a time limit in place. You allow them to speak as long as we don't go over the allotted amount of time for the board meetings. And as long as they're being respectful and professional. They are members of the public. They have a right to participate in these meetings.
Seems reasonable to me personally to have a time limit then, especially if you have the discretion to allow further
Or less.
or less.
So,
I don't get the sense that we're gonna have that kind of controversial. Long. Meetings, I don't think, or some people wanting to testify.
well, we don't know what's gonna happen as the program
Yeah.
becomes more widely known.
Yeah, so why don't we put something in place just to have it, and,
Yeah.
you can always use it,
Sure.
we can always not use it, right? So
the
that's,
board had something in place prior to the last meeting, which was 5 minutes.
the board's had something.
Yes,
Yeah.
Then why don't we just
So-
continue that?
So what are we doing?
because we need
Making it
to.
normal.
You-
You're making it official.
Oh,
By
it
making a
wasn't.
decision, that'll be in the minutes.
There was a complaint that it wasn't adopted by the board in a meeting. So that's why we took it off of the agenda for the last meeting because of the complaint. And then we put it on the agenda for this meeting, and so we can vote on it, make it official.
Remember that one?
Okay,
Somebody
so
So is there a motion?
I move that we set a 5-minute time limit for testimony per testifier. Given the chair the authority, the discretion to, the authority to exercise discretion as needed.
Right, second,
Is there any discussion, board members? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and take the vote. William Kunzman, I vote aye. Keola Dean,
I, and I'm alone.
thank you. Barbara Krieg,
Aye.
Andrew Nomura,
I,
Brian Taniguchi,
Aye.
Representative Siam.
I'm alone too.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And the next agenda item is the executive director's report, and we'll turn it over to the executive director, Lenny.
Thank you. So I just wanted to report to the board that Shivani and I are actually working on the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program's website redesign project. So the goals for this project are to redesign the current program website to improve user experience and engagement, modernize program awareness and brand awareness, align the website with program goals, and review and update content that is outdated or underperforming for users. We set a 6-week timeline to go live. Shivani did it in about 2.5, 3 weeks. We've not gone live yet. She will be sharing her screen. In the meantime, as she's pulling up the information, I, as well as member Dean, tried to come up with a program logo too. So member Dean suggested the Ulu plant, which represents or symbolizes both security and growth. Security in times of drought or famine, and prosperity for growth. So the ulu is a breadfruit. If people are not aware of what this is just a draft. So we're going to fix it up a bit. So as part of your meeting packet, and we'll go through this, we've created several tabs or bars, which will include some of the same information, but some new information too. So we created the HRSP home tab or home page, which provides the draft logo, information regarding the program, a possible placeholder for a video, so we can put informational videos on there. We can record once we go live, both employees and employers. They can speak to the program. And then yes, we can include news or any updates regarding the program itself. Next one.
So this is what the current homepage looks like. So obviously there's nothing much.
Although we have to change the wording, it's because this is still the opt-in.
Yeah. So we've changed the board meeting page to make it more concise and efficient to use for users. We've, Shivani, I can't say we, Shivani, created buttons for each of the meetings, for the agendas, board packet, recordings. She has one section for upcoming meetings and another section for past meetings. This particular page has gone live though. It's just, it was hard to find things.
It works really well, thank you.
Good job, Shivani.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the old page. Yeah. We've created a new page for board members, so it'll have your pictures, so you're identified by members of the public. Including all of them. As well as a brief bio.
Right? And I sent it.
So this is what the new page would look like. We did copy and paste some of the bios that we did find online. We could not find pictures for some of our members. Member Nolan. But yes, so this is how it'll look. We'll include bios both from online or any information you would like to provide me that you would like to share with the public. Our current page includes just the board member names. So we've already gone over the board meetings. This is all going to be included on the bars or tabs. So it'll be boards, board meetings, and board members.
So just a note, to put in. Some of us have designated roles on the board, you know, retiree seat, employee representative and all of that. That would be helpful to have.
Okay. So we do need to, we need to fill one of the vacant members, Karen's position. I am trying to talk her into coming back to the board. And then come November, the co-chairperson for Budget and Finance, as well as Senator Aquino's position. Okay. Then we will have separate tabs for employees and employers. That information we're gonna leave blank if we, depending on the information that's provided by Vestwell, that's what'll go into each of those sections. Then we have an About Us tab, which will basically give an overview of the program and information regarding board staff and contact information. Okay, so this is what we've been working on. Shivani has been working on. I can't take credit for
I
it.
say this is not easy to do, so thank you. It really takes a lot of work and a lot of thought to make something usable and attractive, and you're doing a good job, so thank you for doing that.
So is there any comments or questions from board members or the public? None?
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes.
So I noticed that a lot of the other states' retirement savings programs don't call it a retirement savings program. They call it something else. Cal Savers, My Connecticut Savings. So I'm wondering if we have the statutory authority to adopt a different name, and what will be the process to go about doing, considering that.
So in statute, the board is specifically named, and then the program is named as the Hawaii Retirement Savings Program. I need to do more research on the other jurisdictions to see if it's set in statute or their statute allows them to the discretion or the authority to name their program separately from what is named in their laws. But our current law specifically says Hawaii Retirement Savings Program.
You might want to check with the people at DHERD on the deferred
Deferred comp,
compensation
okay.
program. That's referred to as Island Savings Plan, and I don't believe that's in statute, but I could be wrong. It might be in statute.
I can do, thanks. Next agenda item B, the 2026 Hawaii Retirement Savings Board meeting schedule. So for the first couple months of the year, we will be meeting monthly, then we'll go to every other month thereafter. Beginning in June. The reason why we meet monthly the first 4 months is because it's the legislative session. So if I need positions from the boards regarding legislation, we need to meet, we need to receive a formal decision from the board so I can relate that in testimony. We will also hopefully be going or starting the process of going live. So if I need decisions to be made, that's why we're meeting monthly. I do ask board members though to put placeholders in your calendars regarding these dates. So that we're not scrambling for quorum 2 days before the meeting. Okay? Any questions? Members, any questions from the public? None? Okay,
When is opening day next year?
January,
Third Wednesday.
15th, maybe?
No, we need to introduce something. Might be very hard to do.
but I'm hoping that we won't need to because we did make substantive changes to your chapter this past session. Okay. So,
Okay, our next agenda item is our next meeting, which is,
I had a
oh,
question.
sorry, go
Were you
ahead.
gonna set a date for December?
I'll send out emails to you all to check your schedules, but we're looking at around, I think it was December 18th. It was 1 week earlier than than we usually have meetings. So I'll check though.
Okay.
And I have a question, on the list of dates, it says March 16th, Tuesday, but I was just looking it up. I believe that's March 17th.
Okay, I can make the corrections and send out another. Okay. Great, so following this meeting, you will receive an email from me. Checking on dates for a December board meeting. And hopefully by then we can figure out. The member composition for some of the vacancies that will come up November 1st.
You wanna comment on your personnel thing?
That will be the agenda.
Okay. So the next meeting, our next agenda item is the next meeting, which is to be determined, and the in-person location will be in the same room. And at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 11:39 a.m. Thank you very much.
You.
Okay.